Welcome into the DNVR Rockies Player Preview Series. I'm your host, Patrick Lyons, and joining me today are Kevin Henry from RoxPile and Call to the Pen, and we also got Kenneth Weber from Purple Row. How you guys doing today?
Awesome, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time.
We're going to preview some players, and if we're talking about players now and who's the most synonymous with the Colorado Rockies, it probably would have to be Kris Bryant at this point. Last year with the Cubs and the Nationals, hit .265 with 25 homers, 73 RBI. Seems like a lower number than you would have imagined for a superstar of his caliber. He signs a 7-year, $182 million deal this offseason, really only a few weeks ago at this point. So let's break it down. Let's talk about Kris Bryant. Can he carry this team? Will he need to carry the Colorado Rockies?
I don't know that he's going to need to carry them, but I think so many folks are focused on the long term of this contract rather than the short term and what can he do this year, the next year. And I think you're right. I think he fits into the lineup, but it's not necessarily that he's going to be the lineup. They've got a lot of talent around him, a lot of bats around him. Let him fit into what he can do at Coors next year or two and then worry about down the road.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get caught up in the mindset that he needs to make that immediate impact and fill the shoes of Trevor Story. Yeah. But the way that the Rockies have gone about constructing this roster, there is a little bit more balance. So when Arenado and Story had to be the guys to carry the load and Blackmon before them, Kris Bryant doesn't need to do that necessarily. Now, for them to overachieve this year, he might have to. But in the long term, there is a little bit more balance, and that's just him right in the middle of it, keeping that balance intact.
And for the length of the contract and for how much money it is, it really only gets to become questionable at the end of it, right? Yeah. And you got to do that. You got to pay for those big-time free agents. But to your point, Kev, right now he's still in that prime. And to your point, Kenneth, he's got a little bit more support there around him, maybe not to the same caliber that the trio of Arenado, Story, and Blackmon were, but it still is a lot more support, and we'll talk about those guys in the Player Preview Series throughout this entire week. What should we expect, do you think, of Kris Bryant this year? Does he get that big boost from Coors Field? Does he, just have his typical career numbers? Does he also have those typical home road splits, which I think plagues just about everybody? What are you expecting, Kenneth, out of Kris Bryant this year in left field?
So left field defensively, I think that's going to be a little bit of a change because this is a pretty harsh left field environment to play in when you consider all of baseball. Coors is not friendly. It's acreage out there. So defensively, you kind of take what you get with him, but you get to move him around. There is versatility, so he's not going to be an anchor for you. When it comes to Kris Bryant, the bat, after that shoulder injury in 2018, I think that near 40 home run guy that we saw in 2016, it doesn't matter what ballpark he plays in. That's not necessarily who Kris Bryant is anymore. So I think that you're going to have a lot of gap-to-gap power. I think you're going to have a very good balanced approach at the plate that's going to be just an on-base machine, and I think a lot of doubles. I think that's really going to be Bryant this year.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's much less about the power as much as it is the doubles. I mean, you mentioned that. It's a guy, 263, 354, 404 slash line, and 65 plate appearances at Coors. He's got 15 hits, but only 4 of those are extra bases at Coors. So I'm excited to see what he does whenever he actually figures out that gap and gets more of a chance to hit those doubles.
He has such easy power, in watching him take BP up close, it looked like he had like a 3/4 swing and the ball goes out. He doesn't actually hit the ball far either. If you look at some of the larger home runs that he's hit for a guy that's 6'4", who's tied for second all time in tallest players in Rockies history. Michael Restovich, 6'5", that's it. You would think he would hit the ball a lot further, but you're right. He doesn't need to do that. He can go gap to gap, and really, as you're driving in those runs, that's all that matters. It doesn't have to go out necessarily.
And it really depends on how they're going to set the plate for him. And obviously, we've got an idea what the lineup's going to be, but what are they going to do to make sure that if he's going to be a double machine, like, we hoped Daniel Murphy was going to be, and he never was, but let's hope Kris Bryant takes that over. How are they going to set the table? If Chuck's hitting leadoff, what does that mean then for the RBI count? They'll be curious to see.
Yeah, I think his placement in the lineup is going to be very interesting because there's been a bit of a shift in just how lineups are constructed in general. he used to be that prototypical number 3 guy. You put your best hitter in that spot and you give them the RBI opportunities and let it keep on rolling over. If Kris Bryant is going to be that extra base guy while also having a balanced approach and getting on base, why not 2? Yeah. We're really depending at that point on a Ryan McMahon, on a CJ Cron, and a Brendan Rodgers to take that next step to support him. But that's the whole idea of signing Bryant in the first place, is to be that dependable piece and let those other guys around him flourish with him, being the one that's scoring those runs that they drive in.
Early in spring training, we did see a lineup with Blackmon at the top, then Bryant batting second, which is great. It's fine. Again, a lot of times, your best hitter is batting second now in the lineup, but I think you can stretch it out a lot more if you've got somebody like Brendan Rodgers batting second, and we'll see what happens in the leadoff spot. If it is someone with a maybe higher on-base percentage like a Connor Joe, you're right. Mm-hmm. He could actually have even more RBI opportunities lower down in the lineup, probably splitting between the 2 lefties in McMahon and Charlie Blackmon. Final question before we make any bold predictions here. Is Bryant the best candidate or the top candidate? If all things go well in 2022, is he the guy that could get the most votes in National League MVP award voting? Is he going to be their MVP this year?
I'm going to say maybe. And here's why I say that, because obviously he's the guy that everybody's talked about with the Rockies offseason so far. He's been the story. But also, let's be honest, Charlie's still got that name recognition out there. Mm-hmm. I think Bryant does as well. Rymac's definitely not there. Rodgers is not. So I think that it's going to be one of those 2 guys. But if Charlie can rediscover that leadoff magic, I think Chuck has a better chance to get those MVP votes this year than Bryant.
Interesting. Okay.
I think he's the most obvious choice because you have that historical precedence with Bryant. And if he does return to form a little bit, the Rockies are going to be an improved team, and he's going to get consideration for it. That said, if I'm a gambling man, I think that there is going to be some of those younger guys who take that big step forward that maybe could take those votes from Bryant. But he's a pretty good choice so far.
As you said, with that narrative of being a previous MVP, you get looked at a lot differently. Mm-hmm. And if the Rockies are good this year, and if they are a contender, whether that's even just getting the 6th spot in the wild card, I think people from the coast are just going to look and say, well, that's Kris Bryant's work, right? Yep. As long as the numbers are good or good enough, you're going to say, well, he's the factor. Maybe not Charlie Blackmon hitting 20, 25 home runs again, whatever it is. He'll get all that credit, whether he deserves it or not. So I think he could be that favorite in that way. All right, final spot here. Bold prediction. What's something that might take people a little bit by surprise when it comes to Kris Bryant in 2022 with the Colorado Rockies?
So Kris Bryant has never hit 40 doubles in a season.
Wow.
I'm going to say that Kris Bryant does do that, and he goes a little bit further and he hits 50.
Whoa.
50 doubles in a season.
Okay.
That's a big one. I like that a lot, actually. All right. Mine will be that in April, he will be the Rockies' leading hitter. Average-wise, doubles-wise, everything else-wise, because they've got such a strong start at home. He's not going to have to deal with that home-away stuff early on. So I think April we're going to see a red-hot Bryant, and then I think he's going to cool off after that.
Yeah, after the first years with the Dodgers, it's Texas 2, and then they've got 7 in a row after that back home, so that's an advantage. And as you said, Kevin, his numbers at Coors Field actually aren't that great. He hasn't taken advantage of it, and so now will probably be that opportunity for him to do that at home.
Yeah, and like Kenneth said, I'm going to be curious how he fits in and how he learns defensively out there as well. I mean, everybody's going to look at can he hit the doubles and everything else, but I think it is going to be, is he an upgrade over what Tapia and Joe brought last year in left field? I think that's really an interesting storyline to watch.
Yeah, you're not losing a Gold Glove in left field as is. So I think he's going to be fine over there. I don't think he's going to be superb, but I think he's going to be fine. And one last thing that I want to add, I'm going to be very interested to see how his approach changes on the road, because he's been working at Coors as a road player.
Yep.
He's been playing in 3 and 4 game stints, so it's not necessarily easy to come into Coors the same way that we know it's not easy to go out from Coors. So how he adjusts to being at home, and if that changes, just how much that changes Kris Bryant, the road hitter, is going to be a very interesting story for me this year.
I was thinking you were going to make some kind of bold prediction about, be on the cover of GQ or on like park benches out here,
That's
something
not that
like
bold.
that.
He's a beautiful man.
He is a beautiful man.
He's worthy of being on a bench. Actually, no, I think that's a much lower echelon on being on a bench somewhere in Denver at a bus stop.
Yeah.
That's not that impressive.
No.
Get the Keanu Reeves picture. Eating the sandwich on the bench.
I mean, hey, the Phillies put Bryce Harper on the cover of their media guide in a tuxedo. I'm thinking, KB's got somewhere to go there. A little road to step up, maybe.
I like it. My bold prediction for Kris Bryant this year, I think he's going to set a career high in RBI. So, as you said, Kenneth, that 40 RBI, he hasn't gotten to that yet, which is a bit surprising for a guy who's a Rookie of the Year. Guy was National League MVP, 4-time All-Star. He's only had 100 RBI once, at 102 in that MVP season in 2016. I think he's going to top that. Probably not by a lot, but I think he'll set a career high of at least 103 RBI. Again, we know he's going to be batting towards the top of that lineup. We know that the Rockies score runs in bunches. We've seen it at times during spring training, and so I don't expect it to be any different in that capacity. So it'll be interesting to see the first season of Kris Bryant in Denver, the man who's bringing excitement and joy back. Actually, we probably should give a little credit to Bill Schmidt as well. He's the one who's brought the joy back, hasn't he?
He's definitely shown that he is not his predecessor. And I think that's one of the biggest things that Rockies fans are noticing is that this offseason feels a lot different than past off seasons. And obviously, KB coming on board is a big part of that.
Yeah, it's been a bold change. It's been a very welcome change. And I think at the very least, he's going to bring a lot more excitement than we've had in previous seasons. So there's nothing but positive with Kris Bryant coming on board.
We're fine with the more excitement. We're not fine with more Cubs fans coming to the ballpark, though. unless when the Cubs don't come to town, we're getting that one out of the way early too. That's
we are
April,
exactly.
It's gonna be done.
The whole reunion thing and everything else, but then we're going to get a whole lot of Giants reunions as well. The short time he was there, so we'll see how that plays out.
As long as they show up to the ballpark in Rockies purple, that's fine.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
We can deal with that.
Let them have their fun.
Exactly.
Excellent. This has been great, guys. Keep it tuned all week to the DNVR Rockies Player Preview series. We're going to cover numerous guys all week long. Appreciate it. For Kevin Henry, Kenneth Weber, I'm Patrick Lyons. Thanks for tuning in to the DNVR Rockies podcast.